Hello, everyone. I hope you are doing well today. It is Antonetta Mosley with I Follow the Leader. I'm going to allow people to get on and ensure that we are live and ready to go on all platforms. We'll be streaming on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube today. So making sure in the back end that we are on and ready to go. I am so excited for this leadership interview today. Justin Minott from Providence 1898, such an amazing person. And so without further ado, I see that we are live and we are ready to go. So I am going to introduce our leader that we are showcasing today. So Justin is one of the first people I met when I moved to Durham about 3 years ago. He is a phenomenal leader, entrepreneur, and just a great person. Getting to know him and his family has been an absolute joy for me. He serves as the director of Durham's Black-centric co-working community, Providence 1898. And so excited for you to get to know him better. He is an author, he is a speaker, he is an entrepreneur. And so anyone who is here, you are going to get some gems. So I want to welcome Justin in. Hello, Justin.
Hey. You're pre-promising gems. I hope you're right.
I'm promising them. Go check out Justin's social media. He has so many great videos just to pick you up. I went back through a lot of them preparing for this, and I was like, this is just so perfect. Justin is the perfect leadership interview. And so excited. Thank you for coming on today.
So glad to be here. You're doing beautiful work and just glad to be a part of it. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. So tell us a little more about what you are doing career-wise right now. What is Providence 1898? How can we get connected? I know that I am a member, but just tell us a little more about your current role.
Career-wise, I love that question. And I think for me, it actually starts in an interesting direction because career-wise is what I'm doing life-wise. I don't really see them as a separate thing. I mean, separate allocations of time, but I don't really see them as a separate thing. And I think that's one of my secrets to life is that the work that I'm doing flows from who I am and why I feel like I'm on the planet, and I align the work to that. So I would say for me, who I am is I'm an impactor. I love helping people grow their impact. I love seeing people win. I'm obsessed with it. And I've been really interested more and more about the power of business to do that, the power of entrepreneurship, to really liberate people on their journey, to have them expressing their full selves, and then niching that down even further. Being in the US, I'm formerly from Canada, being here in Durham, becoming more and more curious about what that means in the Black community here in Durham and beyond, but entrepreneurship as a vehicle for transformation, liberation, and impact. That's been my curiosity. So now all of that lands me, I'm in Providence 1898, really in the perfect spot to be doing that. We are a co-working community and resource hub, and I say those words very intentionally. And we're located right here in the historic NC Mutual building, so one of the pillars of Black Wall Street. Just an incredible story. But all of the words that we use to describe the work are so intentional. A co-working community, we don't call it a co-working space. Right. And I think that's a small difference that the team and I have made since I've been here is I refuse to let people call this a co-working space. It's a community. The point is collaboration. The point is growth. The point is you succeeding and having the resources and tools that you need. And we do that in space, right? So of course, there's all the co-working amenities and the coffee and the printers and all those things. But I think if we get off of and this is for any business, if you stop getting obsessed with the real why, you can get so focused on, how do we fill space in a pandemic? How do we, right? All of these things. It's like, no. How do we serve? How do we create community? And then how do we use space to do that? So co-working community, and then resource hub, very intentionally say that we're leaning into the vision that I have here is if someone lands at RDU Airport and they're like, okay, I want to plug into the Black leadership, entrepreneurship community, and they ask somebody who's from here, where do I do that? I want that answer to be Providence 1898. no question. And not that we do all the things, but that we aggregate the things. There are so many people in the Triangle region, but specifically in Durham, so many people doing beautiful work, a part of these, I guess like the business ecosystem is really rich. There's different pieces of the ecosystem, but I want to be the spot where a lot of that gathers, where a lot of that comes together. If you kind of think of the public square in some of these older cities, the public square itself is kind of, neutral, but the things that happen there, it aggregates a lot of these activities. So I want to be able to have that, again, way beyond space, and have that be the work that we're known for over here. So that's the work.
That's amazing. And for those who are watching for the first time, I take a lot of notes. And so, you talked about the co-working community instead of space. And I think that's a major shift, right? I think that is very powerful, such a major shift. Some of the other words I wrote down were just collaboration, growth, serving, right? Community. And so I know you have so many superpowers and you're such a great connector, but if you had to choose one, which is hard for someone like you, what is your superpower?
Okay, I would say a growing superpower of mine that I'm leaning into, that is kind of one of those double-edged or a tough superpower to lean into, is authenticity. It has not always been, and that's why I'm really being transparent here. It has not always been a superpower of mine. It's something that I shied away from as a leader, that I didn't want to show if I was struggling, or I didn't want to, show the real parts behind the scenes of the entrepreneur journey, or some of the low points, or whatever that is. But I'm learning that there is so much power in authenticity. If you show up fully as yourself, as you are, I don't have to be anything other than who I am. I don't have to show up and pretend and put on any faces. I get to show up in every room as I am. And what I'm finding, and this is where the superpower really becomes incredible, what I'm finding is that you go from fitting in to belonging. And I got so exhausted and burnt out on trying to fit in.
Yes.
Instead of belonging. And you cannot belong inauthentically. You can fit in inauthentically, but you cannot belong anywhere inauthentically, because if you're not showing up as yourself, you don't actually belong until you show up fully as you. So really leaning into the power of authenticity, especially at this stage of the journey, and testing it out. Like, it's been kind of a theory for me. Like, okay, I don't know, I'm a little hesitant, and testing it out. And I have to say the results for me have been incredible. The gap in between, though, I'll tell you, to warn everybody on here, full disclaimer, that when you really start leaning into authenticity, you may lose a lot of inauthentic things. Right? And people, and and so that's been the hard part of the journey. But I'm telling you, on this side, it's just starting now for me. I'm finding my tribe, I'm finding my people. I'm finding, the resources that align and the situations that align. The more I step up and speak in my power, step into my power, which is realness. There's nothing more than that. So that, I would say, is the superpower that I've been developing. How about that?
I love it. And so I have a sticky note right here. We didn't talk about this before. It says, how can I be unapologetically authentic today? So this is so powerful, because this is what I have been leaning into in 2021. And so, I have that reminder, and, the work that I do in DEI, and what you just said is so, so important, right? Fitting in versus belonging. And how can we be in environments and spaces and communities and then around people who want us to bring our full authentic selves? And so I think that is so powerful, and something we should all try to hone in on. But it's hard, because we know that the systems often don't want us to be authentic. And so how do we break down some of those barriers that, and like you said, it's often uncomfortable and challenging?
Yeah, I would say it starts with the courage. I'll tell you this, people are not going to make space for you and then you get to be authentic,
Yeah.
right? That's not typically how it goes. It's not like, hey, here's this beautiful, perfect community and the work that you're at, wherever you are, they say, you know what, hey, we just want to make space for you to be you. It actually goes the opposite. It's you start being you and showing up fully as your authentic self. And obviously, like, professionally, whatever that means, all these things, right? But you show up authentically as you, and then either they make space and they grow around your authentic self,
Yeah.
or you find yourself becoming more and more uncomfortable with the people and places that you're in. And
Yeah.
eventually you can't remain authentically there. Right.
Yes.
So
Yes.
one of the two things happen, but I think it starts with the courage. You know, one of my friends always talks about, and I feel like I gotta, put this on a t-shirt or something. Be you, they'll adjust.
I love it. I love it. Right.
Be
Right.
you,
Yeah.
they'll adjust, or they
Yes.
won't, and then you'll move.
Yes, yes, right. Because I mean, tomorrow is not promised. And so living someone else's life or living the life that someone else wants for you, you're always going to be missing something.
Right.
And I think missing out on, right, your gifts and giving your gifts authentically to others. So
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you for that. I would love to know what leaders have inspired you, are currently inspiring you, just as you continue on your personal leadership journey?
I mean, so many, and I'll go again with something that's been super current for me, a meditation that's been super current. I watched, what's his name now, Matthew McConaughey. He gave
Yep.
an acceptance speech for an award, and he was talking about his heroes, and he had some of the obvious ones, his dad, and all these different types of things. But he says my biggest hero has been Matthew McConaughey in 10 years. Because a
Wow.
hero, or someone, a leader that inspires you, a leader that you look up to,
Yep.
you're inspired by these people, and the goal is to what? Become more like them, right? You're looking at them and you're like, wow, there are so many qualities about this person, and I want to become more and more like that person. And so my visualization lately, and to some, they might be like, oh, this, sounds like this guy's full of himself. my visualization lately, though, is what is a 10-year-older version of Justin that I would look up to and be like, man, I want to become more like you, because,
Yeah.
you're aligned and you're having impact and you're moving in authenticity and, all these different types of things. Because what you do with a leader that you look up to is you try to say, okay, well, I want to take the actions that this person takes to get to where they're going and to do the things that they're doing. I want to align my habits. I want to align more of these things to leaders that I look up to. I said, well, what if that was me?
Wow.
Like, what if I was looking
Wow.
up to a 10-year-older version of Justin or a 50-year-older version of Justin and having conversations with him, and when you look up to a leader like that, and other leaders that I look up to, I would picture myself every once in a while having conversations with these people and say, okay, here's the set of issues that I'm dealing with. What do you think? What would you do? Or, and it's funny because from that perspective, all of a sudden it's like, well, they would think my issues are pretty,
Yeah.
laughable. It's like, oh, you're having like a $10,000 issue. It's like, okay, well, yesterday I had a $500,000 issue, or whatever these things are. And it just really puts things in perspective. And I genuinely feel that way about future Justin. When I'm looking at it, I was like, all right, bro, you're out here, you're killing it, you're doing it, you're having a great time, doing work that inspires you. How do you feel about where I'm at right now? Could you give me some advice?
Yeah, that's good.
Vantage point is like, oh, I'm good. Like we're okay. The things that feel big to me really aren't that big in light of what I feel like the overall life trajectory is for me, or what I want the legacy to be overall as I continue to live into this, So again, probably an offbeat answer, but that's the angle I'm taking today.
No, I love that. And for those watching now and those watching later, I told you you were going to get some gems. That is so powerful, right? I think we've all heard, would it matter in a week? Would it matter in a month? Would it matter in a year, right? But that angle of long-term planning that you just introduced to many of us is so powerful. What would yourself in 10 years say to yourself now, right? We often go back to the past. What would I say to my 10 or 20, 30-year-old self? But I love that idea of right? You being your own hero, charting your destiny. And what would myself in 10 years, what would they be saying, doing, thinking about? So thank you. That is a really powerful concept.
Yeah, I feel like in 10 years, we are people that we would look up to at this point,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
right,
that's
right.
how I picture, your journey, my journey is like,
Yep,
man, Antonetta in 10 years, it's like, you better be inspired by the work that she's
right,
doing, and the
right.
moves that she's making and how she's doing it. Because if not, then our actions today are not aligned,
Yep,
right? If
yep.
I'm not inspired about the trajectory that I'm on, then like, what am I doing today?
Yeah,
Right? Like, yeah.
right.
So that's where it really I feel not so much. I think there's a difference between pushing your destiny and feeling like you're pulled by
Yeah,
your destiny, pulled
yes,
by the future. Where it's drawing you almost. It's not this like push
right,
grind capitalist
right,
weird
right.
energy around it. It's like, no, I'm being drawn and called by my
Yes.
future. And it has a very different energetic imprint when you are doing work that you are pulled by, compelled by, drawn by,
Yeah.
versus that you're like pushing to make something happen. Yeah, it feels a lot different.
Does. Yeah, that calling, right? When there's a calling on your life, like you said, you're drawn in.
Mhm.
No matter what, you have to do that or go that way.
Mhm.
So thank you. I would love to know. Many people watching may not have met you before, and so how would you describe your leadership style?
Emerging.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
Right.
would say I would say emerging. The journey has been one of first learning to lead myself
Mhm.
and realizing that I cannot lead anyone else until I am really leading myself, not effectively anyway.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I think there's a big difference between leadership by position and leadership by influence.
Mhm.
And influence, again, coming back to the authenticity conversation, regardless of your position, regardless of the title that you hold, if you're a person of influence, that is leadership. I think to
Yeah.
me, if I was summing up leadership equals influence.
Mhm.
That's it. It doesn't equal title, it doesn't
Right.
equal perceived power. It's influence and how you're using that influence to help move people towards a greater destiny for them, more alignment for them. So yeah, emergent would be the most emerging would be the most honest because I feel like I am very far from aligned with the leader that I want to be. And
Mhm.
it's a continual work in process.
Yeah.
I feel like leadership, I feel entrepreneurship is the same way to me, where leadership and entrepreneurship are really a spiritual practice,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
not just something that you do, it's a spiritual practice because as you do it, it's going to show you,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
it's going to show
Yeah.
you all, your blind spots, all of, the gaps or the areas that you really need help. It's going to expose you. The deeper you
Yes.
go and the more influence you get, it's going to expose you, especially as you start to notice patterns in your life that, hey, I find myself in this similar situation often, right? I find myself dealing with this type of conflict and not really ever getting anywhere. Well, what's going on? I feel like it's this big mirror that shows you. And that's why I say it's a spiritual practice. The point of engaging in these activities is not so much the destination that you end up, it's who do you become as you journey,
Yeah.
right? I really think that life, God, whoever you call it, is far more interested in who we become than what we
Yes.
accomplish. Who are
Yes.
you becoming on the road to accomplishing whatever you're trying to accomplish? It's not even really about getting there. It's who are you becoming?
Yeah.
So for me, emerging is the type of leader
I
that I would
like
say.
it. I like it. And so important to think of leadership as this ever evolving journey, like you
Mhm.
spoke on, because different times in our life, different people we're around are going to cause us to shift and to grow. And so important. I love that emerging. I've done, gosh, maybe over 40 of these over the past 5 years. And I don't think anyone, actually, I know no one has said that. And so
I don't know if
really,
that's a good thing. I
no,
was asking, I'm
it
gonna be
is.
honest, y'all. I was asking Antonetta before the show. I said, like, how me can I be? Oh, because I don't know. I don't really know how to think inside the box. Really,
I
I
love
don't.
it.
Yeah, I don't even know where the box is if I was looking for
Right,
it.
right. You're like, there is no box, right? And I love it. And I think the way that you think, um, right, brings out things in people, right? So even me watching, me talking to you, I'm learning. I love just the different way that you think, and then going back to that authenticity, that you're willing to be authentic, and you don't have to give a typical answer, right? You're going to give the answer that speaks to you, which is really, really important. Next question. So, what does diversity, equity, and inclusion in leadership? What does that phrase mean to you?
I think to me, it really begins with, if you're going to go kind of a tree analogy, right? You have the seed that needs to be planted, and then the roots, and then you got the trunk, and then the branches, the leaves. The seed to me that has been most helpful to plant on the diversity, equity, and inclusion journey has been an understanding that diversity in all its forms is so much richer
Mm,
than monocultures or
yeah.
whatever it is. And you can see it in nature, like even one of the major issues or major ways that we're destroying the planet is a lot of these monocultures that we've
Yeah.
introduced, or these like large scale crops where we've removed a lot of the biodiversity, the natural
Mm,
things that make the ecosystem richer. I have not had a situation in my life where diversity properly engaged, inclusion, equity properly engaged, has not led to something so much richer than what I would have been able to come up with on my own, or if I had surrounded myself with a group of like-minded,
mhm.
like-experienced type of people. And I mean, the stats back it up. There's so many things. I mean, when I had you on the show, you were talking a lot about this. Like the stats even back up how much better teams are, how much more
Yeah.
money, if you can care about that, how much more money your
Right.
team makes when you have diverse teams. And to me, it's really when you start to dig into the DEI work, and I mean the work of DEI, it should start from this understanding that this is going to make everybody better. This is not something to
Right.
do. It's not something to check off a list, have 2.5 Black people on your board, and then you're good, right? Like
Yep.
this is
Yep.
not, those aren't the points that matter. That you say that, hey, the more alternative perspectives that we have at the table, properly engaged,
Yes.
properly equipped, the
Yes.
better everything is, the better our team is, the better our culture is, the better our community is. Overall, the
Yeah.
better our product becomes, because we don't just have a bunch of people in the room. Like, I don't know if you know the story about the Segway, the
Yep.
Segway
Yep.
thing, right? And this was supposed to be, and I'm going to skip the story, but it was supposed to be one of like the biggest innovations of all time, and it's pretty much used by like mall cops, and
Right.
it's going to transform transportation in cities. People are going to use this all the time, but it was just a small group of people who were all
Mm,
invested in it, who
yeah.
didn't actually, would never actually ride on one because they're all like rich and probably fly helicopters, right?
Yeah.
Making a decision about, oh yeah, this is going to transform society. That is like the opposite of diversity of thought, diversity of
Yeah.
experience, diversity of gender, race, right?
Yep.
You're just not getting the full perspective of life. You're just not getting the
Yeah.
richness. It's like you only having salt to flavor your food. Like what, it can only get you so far.
Right. Right. Yes.
Right. So that for me, I think is how it shows up in my work. It started first for me with falling in love with the potential of
Mm,
what diversity could bring, the potential of what type of a society we could create that was, if it was more equitable, what would it
yeah.
look like? The
Yeah.
potential for, if more people were included and deeply included, what would that really look like? And so I fell in love with that. And then again, it's like that kind of calls you to deeper
Yeah.
conversations. It calls you to consider perspectives that you have not considered, and to have conversations with
Yep.
people that you may not normally have a conversation with, because you genuinely value the ways that that conversation can enrich your life and the lives of everybody that you touch. So
That's great.
I don't remember if that was kind of the core question, but that's where I went.
Yeah, no, it was, right. So what, DEI and leadership, I love that you started with the seed and really talked about having that full frame and the full perspective. And I can say, just knowing you, right, being at Nolia, et cetera, seeing you at Providence 1898, around you is diversity, which I
Oh,
think
it makes me
is
so happy.
so beautiful, right? There's certain environments and certain people you go around and I'm going to learn something new. I'm going to meet someone different. And so I hope that encourages people who are watching, right? Are there a diverse group of people around you? And like Justin said, diversity, right, isn't just black and white. It's so much deeper, right? Gender, sexual orientation, disability, etc. So are there people who think differently than you, and do you allow them to speak? Do you allow them to have a voice? And I can say that's something that Justin does. So thank you for exhibiting that.
Yeah, thank you. And again, I mean, just even doubling down, the start of the work for me is still falling in love with, it's not like, oh, I'm doing something benevolent by giving this person a voice.
Right.
I genuinely like, oh my gosh, like it is a privilege, it is an honor that this person would be willing to share their perspective and their experience, because it's going to make my life so much richer. And when you start from there, it's not like, oh, I'm welcoming you at my table of power.
Right.
Right. And you should feel honored to be at my table of power, or whatever, privileges that I have. And I'm, using that. I think that's a really kind of toxic way to look at, is like, no, if I have somebody at my table and I have the honor of having that person at my table as a guest, I'm the one that is being honored. I am the one that is, to me, benefiting more than anything. Forget about the little whatever power you give up, or whatever,
Right.
to have this voice at your table. No, it benefits me.
Yeah.
And so it's in that sense, if you really look at it, and this is something that I think the script needs to be flipped on, is like diversity is selfish.
Right.
Right. And I'm right and I mean that in the really best way. You're not doing anybody a favor by hiring more Black people on your team. Like if you hire more Black people on your team's going to be a lot more flavorful. You have done
right. You helped yourself.
You helped yourself. Black people are dope, right? Like you just helped yourself by doing that. You didn't help the other person. I think that narrative just needs to flip. Right. And so for me, I'm so lucky that I get to have these conversations. It's incredible to me. I'm so lucky that people would trust me with their voice, their story, their perspective, any of that type of stuff that I have not always stewarded well, and I've not always done the right thing about, so that for me, flipping the script and like putting myself out of the center of the narrative in those ways. And like, I think that, again, but it still kind of feels selfish. Like I still benefit, right? So anyway, that would be a little takeaway, I guess.
No, I love that. And I know we have about a minute and a half remaining. I could talk to you for hours and hours. But we have a bucket list question. And so I'm going to actually ask it in 10 years, right? When we think of Justin in 10 years, what is something that you will have done then, something on your bucket list that you have not done yet?
I would love to have my helicopter license.
Oh, wow. All right.
Helicopter or airplane, I got to decide, but I think that would be fun. I'd love to be able to fly. I think that would be beautiful. Another bucket list goal, something that I've really been thinking about, is how can I buy my kids a house for their birthday? Like a real house, like one that produces. So I'm trying to think, by what age and how I would pull that off.
Beautiful.
In a way that they would really appreciate, not even just appreciate, understand a little bit more deeply the power of generational wealth and investing. And,
Yes.
and look, kid, if you want to go to college, if you decide that's the route that you want to go, this thing bought now could probably single-handedly pay for whatever you're trying to do. So like, let's think about this kind of seed analogy that the proverb, the best time to plant a tree was 1,000 years ago, right? And the second
Yep.
best time is today. And so
Now,
I just
yep,
think
yep.
about, I just think about what are bucket list wise, that's a lot of what has shifted in my thinking is less about things that just affect my life, as much as that's good. And I should be investing in myself and loving myself. I love that. But then beyond, it's like, how do I plan for the next 10 generations?
Yes.
And so my bucket list stuff is like, okay, what can I accomplish in this lifetime that sets up the next generations to have not just wealth, but impact, influence?
Yes. I love that.
Those are the things. So that's my next one is, all right, how do I buy babies a house?
Yes. Yes. The sweet babies.
Right.
Sweet
Yeah.
babies. Awesome. Awesome. Well, we end every leadership interview by just trying to give some of those gems to current and future leaders. And so we are going to end today. If you can tell me what is a book every leader, right, everyone should read?
The Four Agreements.
Yep.
Yeah, The Four Agreements by, I think it's Miguel Ruiz. Anyway, The Four Agreements. And this is a book, it's a short read, and it talks about these four basic agreements in life, or ways to make your life better, significantly better. And the first one is be impeccable with your word, meaning like watching every word that comes out of your mouth. And then the one that I've been meditating on recently, because this is a book that, I come back to often, or the concepts anyway that I come back to often, is take nothing personally. Nothing personally.
That's tough, right? I mean, yeah, but that's good.
Coming from the understanding that everything that everybody else does to you, around you, whatever it is, only has everything to do with their inner state.
Yes. Yeah.
It has nothing to do with you. And it's actually egocentric to make it about you. Even if they're talking directly to you. And this is kind of the paradox, right? They say like, oh, you are this, like you're that. But they're really saying, I have some sort of insecurity or whatever, where I need to project that onto you to feel better.
Yes.
Right? Or I don't know how to communicate that with you in a way that actually leads to growth. And so I'm just kind of spewing this out. Take nothing personally. Right? And then the flip side of taking nothing personally, and where I'm really leaning into, is when you take nothing personally that anybody else does, you take everything personally that you do, meaning I take full responsibility for my emotional state, my mental state, every position that I found myself in, because really where I am today is a result of what I've been doing.
Yeah.
There's nobody else to blame. I mean, there are influences that happen, but everything that where I am today is my responsibility. It's a result of the decisions that I've been making over time. Right. And so when you take nothing personally from everybody, you take everything as a responsibility of your own. And the irony is that on the other side of that tough journey, because it's kind of bleak, like the self-responsibility.
It's all.
Yeah, it's like, oh no, that hurts. But I will tell you, the other side that is emerging on the other side of that journey is one of ridiculous empowerment. I feel so powerful when I'm not blaming other people for anything.
It's great.
Right? It's like, oh, well, this person at my company is not performing. Okay, why did you hire them?
Right. Right. Put it on you. Yeah.
Why did I hire them? Okay. And if they're still, okay, they got through the interview process, no problem. Why haven't I fired them?
Woo.
Right? Like you can't get away from the responsibility of the world that you have created around you.
All right.
Kind of throwing this off onto other people. But again, on the flip side of that is one of a ridiculous power, because if I have the power to create the situation I'm in, I have the power to create whatever next situation that I want to see and align the world and do the things, I get to be in that. When I take responsibility, the other side is that I get to be in the creator seat,
Yes.
and
So
create
good.
that place of power. So it's scary and bleak, which I think is one of the themes of this thing, is you're going to do
It's hard.
that are really scary and maybe lonely and pretty bleak. But on the other side of authenticity, on the other side of like self-responsibility, there's some good stuff. You told me not to cuss. There's some good stuff.
I love it. Thank you. So Don Miguel Ruiz, 4 Agreements. I have actually not read it. So I'm going to be reading this ASAP or getting it on Audible, because we're talking about authenticity. So I will probably be listening to the Audible.
Hey, look, you have to get it in whatever format you need.
Yes.
That's it. Do you?
Yes, and yeah, it's the way, right? My goal for this year is 35. I'm on track, and that's the way that I get there. Okay. Yeah. Next prompt. What's a trait every great leader should have?
Humility.
Yeah.
To me, and humility. And again, work in progress for me. Humility, I've heard it said that humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking about yourself less. Right? And so it's not shrinking, it's not playing small. And I think that's where we get this really twisted. We think that humility is playing small or shrinking down. That's not it at all. I think it is this teachable, open-handed approach to life.
Yeah.
Knowing that when you know that you don't know everything, your life actually gets so much better and so much richer. The more that you know, you realize that you don't know. Right? Like that continual learning. And I got this from, I met this man in Toronto who, big time guy, big name. Everybody in Toronto knows him. And I was speaking at this event. I was much younger, speaking at this event. And he came up to me after, and this guy, like I said, he's like the de facto mayor. Like he just an incredible, beautiful soul doing big work, big impact. And he came up to me after, he's like, I really like what you said about this. Do you mind if I use that? And I'm thinking, like, dude, I should be asking you. In this, I'm even just so glad to be in the same room as you. And he came to me, and it was completely genuine. Like, I really loved this, and I could just see that one of the traits that made him so great is that he was so humble. And again, not small, I mean humble. Where he would just, I really love how you said that. Do you mind if I use that? And I'm thinking, like, man, what a beautiful trait, because you see people in those types of positions of power and leadership, rarely are they the ones really like supporting, lifting, doing that type of stuff. No, they're using their power. They're making the room know that it's about them. Right. And so that was something I'll never forget. And that is one of the traits. And, I was just trying to avoid saying authenticity like I started talking about, because it's all right. Right. But I think that's one of the traits that I've seen in all truly great leaders. And I don't just mean powerful people.
Great
leaders. Great leaders.
Great.
Yeah.
That's great. And last prompt, and you gave us some of this, so you may just want to use that. But what's a lesson every impactful leader should learn? So you told us, right, not taking anything personally, which I think is so powerful. But just let me know, is there anything you want to add there? A lesson every impactful leader should learn?
I think to genuinely fall in love with the process and not the results, right? And it sounds so cliche, but I wish people could grasp this at a deep level. Yeah. If you fall in love with the process, you are invincible. Because then when you go out there and life punches you in the face, or like things, right? That's what Mike Tyson says. Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face, right? When you go out there and things don't happen your way or whatever it is, if you're in love with the process, and not the results, and not your ego, and not what you think it's supposed to look like, then you really lean into those spots that might feel dark and say, okay, what is this here to teach me? How can I grow? Who am I becoming? Coming back to some of the earlier parts of the conversation. But I would say, whatever it is that you're pursuing, learn to not fall in love with the goal,
Yeah.
right? Like, oh, well, when this happens or this happens, learn to fall in love with the steps on the way to the goal. Every
Yes.
step, right? Like here, hopping in on LinkedIn Live and doing all these interviews, like falling in love with that, And of course, you're on a path to become like this incredibly world sought after speaker, right? But most people would fall in love. I'm talking about you. Most people would fall in love with being a speaker. I'm serious,
Right.
right? Oh,
Well, thank you.
most people would fall in love with the idea of speaking in front of 10,000 people,
Right.
20,000 people. They don't fall in love with the idea of the steps that it
Yes.
takes
Yeah.
to speak in
Yeah.
front of 20,000 people.
Yeah.
But when you love every step, you are invincible. Life cannot take anything
Yeah.
away from you. Because to me, it's like, man, I get to wake up and I get to play the game. Like I'm here.
Yes. Yes.
I get to
Yeah.
do another day. So it's like, man, if I'm alive, it's a good day. And like
It's a
again,
good
cliche, but
day.
I genuinely mean it.
Yeah.
If I'm alive, it's a good day because it means that I get to show up and enjoy this process. And
Yes.
I'm telling you this as somebody who like I'm in the middle of it. Like there is so many things going on,
Yeah.
and so many pressures and different things hitting me from all sides. But it's like, no, I'm in love with the process. I'm in
Yeah.
love with the fact that I woke up today and I get to put one foot in front of the other and have this great conversation with an
Yeah.
incredible human that I think so highly of, and
Yeah.
I am right here in this.
Right. Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And I think it's so beautiful, right? To be able to show up. And like you said, take those steps, right? Having these conversations for me, being able to put
Mhm.
people's stories out in the world, like you said, that's what matters to me, right? And
Mhm.
that's grown and evolved, right? We are on LinkedIn Live. We are live, right? I
Crazy.
used to meet with a person in person and do my interviews and then go, right? But now we get to have LinkedIn Live conversations and we get to have this video and you get to not
Mhm.
only see how I perceive someone's thoughts, but to actually hear them say it. And it's so powerful.
Man.
So thank you, Justin. So many gems.
Well, one quick, the word
Yeah,
you said
yeah,
there was so key. So you said, I get to. I think if people could hear this really clearly, just
yeah,
even transforming those words from I
yeah.
have to I get to, right? So I have to
Yes.
go to work today.
Yeah.
I have to, whatever. I have to commute 30
Right.
minutes.
Right.
I have to. No, no, no. I get to. And when you change
Yes.
it to I get to, then you look at, okay, what is the get to? Right?
Yeah.
Like, what is the thing that if you were just to flip it from have to get to, that you would notice that you wouldn't otherwise notice, like the
Yeah.
leaves on your commute that
Right.
you get to see on the
Yes.
way, or the podcast that you get to listen to because of that
Yeah.
time, or you get to go to work and earn dollars, and impact lives, like you get to. And I
Yeah.
think even just like that little phrase, I love how you said that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, Justin, so powerful. What I promise you over deliver, which I love, right? This was an over deliver. I told you gems, they just kept coming. We actually had a comment. I'm actually gonna put it up just so you can see what someone said. So thank you, Justin. I now have many more favorite quotes, lots to think about from this conversation. This
Thanks,
was
Adriana. That means a
awesome.
lot. Thank you.
So, you over delivered. You always over deliver. Anytime, even if I'm in your presence for 5 minutes, I leave with something to help me be better, right? And to help the world be better. And so I know you've done that for others. Justin, I want to let people know, get your book, Unleashed, How to Live Fully and Do Something That Matters. Justin is also an author. I'm sure that is not surprising to you.
Thank you.
Get his book. Follow him on Instagram. Like I said, he does so many great videos and just sharing his thoughts and perspectives with the world. And as Justin said, I'm going to throw this back to him. But Justin is already doing so many powerful things in Durham, in the United States, in the world. And so watch out. Justin in 10 years, the world is not ready, but we need him. And so I cannot wait to see just how you continue to build community and help others grow and thrive, Justin.
You don't know how much I needed that today. Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
When I say I'm showing up here on LinkedIn and doing this interview and stuff's going on, like
Yeah.
you don't know how much, and for everybody watching, you don't know how far a kind word can go on in a dark season for somebody. So,
I
Antoinette,
do.
thank you. Thank you.
Of course, of course. And we've been talking a lot about, right, the Zoom frame versus reality.
Come
Right.
on.
And so we cannot forget that this frame and how we see people, right, showing up and doing things, that's not all of them. That's not their entire
Mhm.
story. And so, yeah, I think that's so important. Thank you. We're getting a lot of people just putting quotes in. I get to enjoyed hearing you both talk. So thank you for those who were with us today. Thank you to those who will watch this later. Put it in your vault because it is just really powerful. So Justin, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
coming on. Again, you are one of my favorite people in Durham, one of my favorite leaders. And so just really grateful for you and your time.
I'm grateful for you too. Keep doing the good work. I'm looking forward to seeing all of the journey. You're doing it so well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for watching today. You can go watch this video and others at ifollowtheleader.com/conversation. So we do courageous conversations. We do leadership interviews. And so thank you so much for watching. We will see you again soon.